let's talk about avoiding injuries. Uh, One of my favorite topics. So while it's nice to be able to heal relatively quickly from injuries, it's much better not to get injured in the first place. And in my opinion, there are a few different cases where injuries happen related to this sword fighting. So it's usually always it's your own fault. Sometimes you get hit, but even then you can consider it's your fault because you were doing something you were not supposed to do, or didn't wear enough protective gear, or made a mistake. I think first of all that's the attitude to take take the responsibility for not getting injured. So when practicing, if you get too excited and you take a really heavy sword and then you start hitting a tree or a bell or whatever, you will get then lots of shock to your joints and wrists, and it is possible that you will greatly damage yourself. Because some people think that the whole idea is to get super stressed and tired and feel almost like broken after a practice session, but that is not the case. That typically happens if you go to a long tournament. So after the tournament you can be quite knackered because you went all out. But the practice, what we do with this is mostly coordination and of course some endurance training with lots of repetitions. So it means that you will need to prepare your joints and muscles and your body to be able to take that kind of repetitive training. And it usually starts from there that you might be too weak for this. The swords only weigh about 1 kilogram. Shields are from 1 kilogram to maybe 3 kilograms or even more depending on what you are using, but these are not super heavy. So if you go to a gym, just the bar is maybe 20 kilos. So what you need to have is extra reserve in strength so that you can handle these, because when these are moving fast, these actually become quite heavy. So even 1 kilogram sword starts to feel like 10 kilogram weight, sometimes even more. So you will have to prepare your body for that. Now the problem here is that if you lift weights and do things like that, you're usually moving slower than what you are moving with swords. So gym work, it's good for strengthening your joints, but it doesn't go through all the motions. So you still need to do the sword work as well. But it's a good way to get strong enough in order to be able to handle these weapons safely at high speeds. But I found out that even if you are strong enough, which is not much for this needed, it's not the same as handling a sword. So you can be the strongest person in the world, and when you are typing with a computer, you can get this carpal tunnel syndrome or tendonitis or whatever just by lightly typing with a computer. So it's the same story. So how to avoid the injuries then during your practice? The practice should feel more or less light. I'm not saying effortless, no way, but light, in that you are not feeling like you are straining your joints to the limits and everything is getting sore or super tired already during the practice. But that's not the point. So if you get really tired, you are doing endurance training, but that is not helping with your coordination much. You can learn to fight when you are tired that way, but it's like in the end, like just before a tournament or something specific you are practicing. For the skill development, take it light. So I would say light and fast if you can. And what you can do is you can sometimes train with heavy swords and sometimes with light swords. Because for the coordination, in order to keep the speed up really, you need to practice with a lighter sword what you are currently using. And then if you want to stress your body a little bit more, the joints a little bit more, you need a heavier sword than what you are currently using. So maybe you usually always have these 3 different swords here. And keep the practice light. And if you want to avoid every time that the next day something hurts when you have been doing just a practice session, then you will know that you have gone too far. And it's super easy to ignore those signals that, okay, it's just a little bit hurt here and a little bit hurt there, and I don't worry about it, I'm gonna practice today with the same intensity as yesterday. That will be the mistake, and that will get you injured. That's one thing. So doing a lot of repetitions, keep it light. The second thing here is that you need to train for the maximum stress you are going to experience, let's say in a tournament or harder practice session. So if your body is not able to tolerate the hardest stresses it will experience, it can break. So you will have, for example, this overextension, rotation injuries if you haven't been practicing for those. Or maybe you can tear up your Achilles tendon or something else. This kind of happens very quickly type of injury. But the only reason for that is that you went over your body's tolerance. Now, how to know that where the limit is, that's the trick. That's difficult, and there are no easy rules in there, except that you will have to find out those most risky moments which can happen. For example, for the Achilles, and then you will have to start practicing strengthening your Achilles and the calf. So it's quite easy to get some kind of muscle sprain in the calf, especially if you have like longer tournaments or fights. This will get tired, and then it will cramp, and once it cramps a little bit, it's no longer flexible, and then your Achilles becomes at risk. So jumping, just lifting, tiptoe kind of stuff with some weights maybe, you need to start doing that. So this is one problem area you have to practice. You have to walk. If you can start running, run a little bit, but not too much. So always keep in mind you are doing repetitions, and if you are sore the next day, if anything hurts in the attachment points of the Achilles, for example, you have gone too far. So it's going to be small increments, almost like a rehab, but now this is prehab. So you are increasing the resistance all the time a little bit, and you are watching that does it hurt somewhere. If it does, you need to take a few days break or reduce the resistance once again. But this is like you ramp up the tolerance of your body for these extreme movements. So it is a risky path, but in my opinion it's the only way to teach your body more tolerance and resilience. So then it's up to you, what do you need. But as an example, if you are fighting in a heavy armor, you should also find out that if you're planning to jump, let's say from here down there in a heavy armor, and if you don't practice for that, I think you might injure your knees or your Achilles or something. So you need to know your own moves and what you have to do. So the resistance you're going to be having, try to reach that in your strength and conditioning sessions as well. So slowly go up. If you're starting from nowhere, really slowly go up with resistance and keep it light, but keep increasing the resistance a little bit. And then at some point in time you may find, especially if you're older, that you cannot increase the resistance anymore without getting sore bits and pieces here and there, or actually starting to get stress injuries and things like that. That's your limit. You can't go higher. So it's not like infinite improvement you should expect. You can get to some level. So then when you are there, then your only option is to reduce the risks during practice and tournaments or fighting, practice fights, that you cannot go higher intensity than what your body will allow. And this is sometimes really difficult to understand, that you want to go max speed and max everything, but you shouldn't. So you have to regulate your fighting. You may have to select certain techniques that are easy for your body. I have done it several times. I have thrown away some of my old techniques because my body just couldn't take those anymore. You have to adapt, and then you're using those. And maybe you're going lighter, maybe you're taking more breaks during training. That's fine, because you know you are on your limit. And if you also now know that if you go above your limit, something is going to break, and then you are out for months, maybe even longer, depending on what you messed up. So, summarize. Take responsibility. Slowly increase the resistance levels when you are practicing to the level you need. And then third thing, when you're doing fighting, regulate and minimize the risks in there. Don't try anything crazy, especially if you're older, because then things happen.